I'm not going to waste your time. This is a video about Sonic Adventure 2, a game that some Sonic fans consider to be one of, if not the best Sonic game ever. So, I wanted to go back and experience the game again to see if it still holds up. We start things off with the most important part of any video game, the intro. Sonic Adventure 2's intro is nothing special. Whoa, you're probably thinking, what? The Sonic Adventure 2 opening is amazing! You got cool intros for all of the characters, that epic shot of Shadow and Sonic flying past each other in front of the moon, the rad opening song that ends off with the game's main theme, Live and Learn. It's perfect, right? Well, that's actually the opening for Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. This is the opening for the original release of the game on the Dreamcast in June 2001. And it's honestly kind of boring. It's this shot of space and the logo for the game flies in. There's no cool music, you don't see any of the game's characters, it's honestly kind of a letdown. Thankfully, they changed it with the updated release of the game on the GameCube in December 2001, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. Battle added a number of new features to the game, like an expanded multiplayer mode, better performance, and even edited cutscenes. Most of the changes aren't anything major, mostly minor graphical changes to things like lighting, models, and visual effects. There are a few noteworthy changes though. Like for example, in the original Dreamcast version, in the first cutscene for the game of the hero story, Sonic actually starts off wearing his original shoes, and not the iconic soap shoes that everyone remembers from this game. He suddenly switches to the soap shoes after busting out of the gun helicopter. Maybe the shoes were stashed somewhere on the gun copter, or maybe Sonic just had them in his butt pocket or something. If you're interested in learning about all of the very minute differences between Sonic Adventure 2 Dreamcast and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on the GameCube, I'll leave a link to a video going over the changes in the description. Besides the Dreamcast and GameCube versions, there is a third version of Sonic Adventure 2, the 2012 HD release of the game, which is an updated version of the GameCube release. It doesn't add much in terms of content, it's basically your typical remaster with HD visuals, widescreen, and achievements for your system of choice. However, there are some interesting changes like the removal of the soap branding. Soap was a brand of grinding shoes that were a fad in the late 90s and early 2000s. This led to Sonic wearing his soap shoes in Sonic Adventure 2 and the addition of several images in the game promoting the soap brand, which were subsequently removed in the remaster. However, this version did give us something back that was absent in the GameCube version. The GameCube version committed the unforgivable crime of removing nearly all of the Big cameos. Big the Cat, everyone's favorite possibly high fisherman, debuted in Sonic Adventure, but unfortunately he didn't come back for the sequel. Luckily, in the Dreamcast version of Sonic Adventure 2, you could find Big hanging out in various stages. For some reason, these cameos were removed in the GameCube version. But then it was decided that Big's cameos would come back in the HD release. One thing that does suck is that for some really dumb reason, they took some of the multiplayer content added in Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on the GameCube and made them DLC for the HD version. While I do have the DLC, I don't really have much interest in the multiplayer, and I won't be talking about it in this video, although it is really stupid that they made this stuff DLC. The 2012 HD version is by far the most available version of the game these days, so if you're playing Sonic Adventure 2 Battle in this day and age, unless Sega finally releases a remake, it's gonna be this version. So, I wanted to take a look at the version that is the most widespread and readily available for this video. But now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, let's actually get into the game here. We begin at the title screen, and man do I love this. I really dig how the background shows off all of the awesome 2D Yuji Uekawa artwork for the various characters in the game. They put this filter over the artwork that has these sort of vertical streaks of light, and there's also bubbles moving vertically as well. I can't really explain why I'm fond of the way it looks, but it just works. It helps that an instrumental of Live and Learn is playing. Once we press the start button and go into the single player mode, we make it to the story select screen. Since as far back as I want to say Sonic and Knuckles in 1994, the Sonic series has experimented with having multiple playable storylines in its games. However, Knuckles' storyline takes place after Sonic's storyline in Sonic and Knuckles. In the first Sonic Adventure game, the idea of multiple storylines running concurrently would become a mainstay of the Sonic franchise. While Sonic Adventure 1 has 6 campaigns, Sonic Adventure 2 only has 2. However, like Sonic Adventure 1, Sonic Adventure 2 has 6 playable characters. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles return from the previous game, and we get 3 new playable characters, the series' main villain, Dr. Eggman, and 2 all-new characters who debuted in this game. the lover of jewels, Rouge the Bat, and the lover of Latinas, Shadow the Hedgehog. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles are playable in the Hero story, and Shadow, Eggman, and Rouge are playable in the Dark story. It doesn't matter which story you decide to play first. It's not like Resident Evil 2, where playing as Claire or Leon first will change up what happens in the second character's journey. The only difference I'm aware of is that the story you play first will affect the teaser cutscene that you get once you're done with one of the stories. We'll get to that later though. In any case, I decided to play the Hero story first because I'm basic and because I'm pretty sure that's what the developers wanted you to play first. It's the story that's highlighted when you first get to the story select screen after all. So, let's finally get into the actual game here. The story starts off with Sonic being under arrest for armed robbery and being transported inside of a gun helicopter. GUN, the Guardian Units of Nations, is a military group run by the government that apparently exists now. I wonder where they were at when all of this was going on. Sonic escapes, throws out a couple of one-liners, and uses a piece of the helicopter as a skateboard. This takes us to our first stage of the game, City Escape, one of the most unforgettable stages in Sonic history. It's a level based on San Francisco, California, and it's a good fast-paced stage to serve as an introduction to the game and many of its mechanics. The stage starts off with you skating down the street. At this point, you only have to focus on moving down a fairly straightforward path, which is good for getting a hang of the controls. Eventually, you'll fly off into this little overpass area, and you leave your board behind, giving you more freedom to move around. Sonic can jump, he can use his homing attack to automatically dash at enemies, items, or interactable objects, he can use his somersault to destroy enemies and boxes and go under obstacles, and he can use his spin dash to instantly gain a burst of speed. By hopping onto a rail, Sonic can grind, which is what I would call the signature mechanic of this game. Grinding allows you to move down a set path with a lot of speed, and it looks really cool. This stage has a great ska music track. Memorable set pieces like the humongous gun truck whose driver decides that causing millions of dollars of collateral damage and potentially killing hundreds of people is worth catching one speedy hedgehog. This is where your tax dollars are going, folks. After outrunning the truck, we reach the goal ring, marking the end of the level. At the end of each level, you get a grade from E to A based on how well you performed on the level. I haven't cared about grades since I graduated, so moving on. We get to our first boss fight with Bigfoot, a walker mech with missiles piloted by a gun member. This is a really easy boss fight. You jump on these boxes and then do a homing attack on Bigfoot's cockpit. After beating Bigfoot, we come face to face with the coolest thing a 10-year-old boy could lay his eyes on, the ultimate life form, Shadow the Hedgehog. I think it was a good idea to introduce Shadow early on here. Obviously, Shadow is the new character that we're all here to see. Turns out Sonic's been hit with some false allegations because it seems like Shadow is actually the one who's been going out and doing bad stuff, and they've all mistaken Sonic for Shadow. Sonic is impressed with Shadow's speed until he finds out that Shadow is a big fat fraud because he didn't move fast, he just used an ability called Chaos Control to teleport. I really like the concept of Chaos Control, because until this point in the franchise, Chaos Emeralds were fairly useless unless you had all 7. Having this cool warping power with only the use of one Chaos Emerald is a nice addition to the lore of the series. Even Sonic thinks it's cool, so cool that he lets his guard down and gets re-arrested by Gun. We change scenes to the desert, where Knuckles and Rouge are fighting over the Master Emerald. Similarly to Shadow, we're also introduced to Rouge very early on as well, which is good. Unfortunately, Rouge doesn't get to do anything cool because Eggman gets the drop on both of them by swooping in and stealing the Master Emerald. Knuckles then decides to shatter the Master Emerald into dozens of shards to avoid Eggman running off with it. This takes us to the second gameplay style of Sonic Adventure 2, treasure hunting. Whereas Sonic's gameplay was fast and exciting, Knuckles' stages are a bit slower, and by a bit I mean, well, a lot. The first stage, Wild Canyon, isn't bad though. The way these stages work is instead of going after a gold ring, you're trying to find 3 shards of the Master Emerald. Knuckles apparently has some emerald radar in his skull or something because he can tell if he's close to one. Sometimes. You see, your radar can only track one emerald shard at a time, and only one specific shard on the map, which means even if you're right next to an emerald shard, you might not even know it and end up walking right past it because it doesn't show up on your radar. You have to find the emerald piece that the game selected for you first before the radar will track another piece. The radar works on a hot-cold system. If you're nowhere near the shard, the radar won't do anything. If you're somewhere in the right ballpark, the radar will start to make a sound and it will glow green. If you're starting to get close, it'll glow yellow. If you're starting to get really close, it'll glow red. And if you're right next to it, an exclamation point will appear above Knuckles' head. Knuckles has a wide range of abilities to find emerald shards. He can jump, glide through the air, dive downwards, and he can even punch stuff. I think Knuckles has a really fun moveset, even if the tasks you're doing can be annoying. Like I mentioned before, the radar really sucks in this game. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to track multiple emerald shards at a time, especially because Knuckles could already do that in the last game, Sonic Adventure 1. They deliberately nerfed him. To make things a bit easier, they do give you hints, which you can access by interacting with these hint monitors. There are two big downsides to the hint system though. One, you only get a limited amount of hints, and two, the hints are trash. So many of these hints are very vague and will only make sense if you're already somewhat familiar with the level layout. Luckily, Wild Canyon is a fairly small stage. There are multiple levels to the stage, and you can access the higher levels by taking this upward flowing gust of air. After finding the shards, we switch over to the perspective of our last hero character, Tails. It is odd that Tails is the last one we play as, considering he's Sonic's best buddy, his right-hand man, his number 2, so I would have guessed he'd be second. Tails is flying over to Prison Island where Sonic is being held captive until he spots Amy, who is being apprehended by Dr. Eggman. The script is really awkward here. Tails is just kinda talking to himself for like a whole minute and the dialogue isn't great. Interestingly, our first opportunity at controlling Tails comes in the form of a boss fight with Eggman. Instead of moving around himself like in Sonic Adventure 1, Tails got lazy and decided to fight in his mech. You can jump and you can fire bullets. In addition, you can fire homing shots. Unlike Sonic and Knuckles who stay alive by carrying rings on them, Tails has a standard health bar that you refill by getting rings or finding health packs. After beating Eggman, we go inside of Gun's base and make it to our first proper Tails stage, Prison Lane. These shooter stages are very reminiscent of the Gamma stages from Adventure 1. You shoot down a bunch of enemies while platforming. The only issue is that the combat is pretty brain dead for the most part, mostly because the homing attack can just destroy everything so easily. You just spam the fire button to destroy everything in sight. It doesn't help that aesthetically this stage isn't all that interesting either, since it's just a generic military base. Later things do get more interesting though, but these first few stages especially aren't very engaging. After beating the stage, Amy breaks into Sonic's jail chamber and manages to rescue him after swiping a keycard. Good work, Amy. Unfortunately, Amy doesn't get much work because like Big and Gamma, Amy lost her job and she is now forced to be a side character. Now that Sonic's free, we move on to our next speed stage, Metal Harbor, a harbor filled with gun storage tanks and aircrafts. Metal Harbor is visually more appealing than stages like Prison Lane while still keeping the military-esque vibe. Like City Escape, this stage has an upbeat track for its music. While it does have some ska vibes, it leans a bit more into just high-energy rock. Another really great track. Metal Harbor is where we get our first upgrade, the Light Shoes. These allow you to automatically fly through a trail of rings using the Lightspeed Dash. I always liked Metal Harbor, but going back to it for this video made me realize that most of the stage is just one long hallway. There are some rails you can grind on and you can homing attack some of the enemies to get to some of the different spots, but there really isn't much to do. Thankfully, the Lightspeed Dash does make things a bit better. You see, when you go back to replay levels, you keep all of the upgrades you've unlocked, allowing you to access routes that you couldn't get to before. The stage ends with a nice little set piece where Sonic has to run up these walkways to make it onto a rocket before it launches. After riding the rocket, this leads to another set piece where Sonic is using another random piece of metal as a skateboard. We end off the level, which leads to another encounter with Shadow, this time in a jungle. This boss fight is also pretty easy, just get behind Shadow and homing attack him. One thing this fight made me realize is, this game really needs a reticle for the homing attack. You do the homing attack by pressing the jump button while you're in the air. If you don't have a target for the homing attack, then you'll just do a dash. Because you don't have a reticle, you don't know if your homing attack is going to activate or not, and you also don't know if you have the right target. Meaning, you just have to hope your homing attack comes out when you want it to, and you have to hope it targets the right thing. In any case, we defeat Shadow and we find out that the island is about to blow up, which leads to our next stage, Green Forest. Green Forest, as you might expect, is a green forest. It has a lot more freedom than Metal Harbor, which is great. The music here is also so sick. The intro to the song gets me hyped every single time I hear it. One problem I do have with the stage is this is where I noticed that the game would often just spawn enemies right in front of you, giving you little time to react to them. This cheap enemy placement happens in a number of stages, unfortunately. Besides that though, this is definitely one of the better speed stages. During this stage, I found this interesting box. This box holds a Chow key. By completing a stage with a Chow key, you are taken to the Chow World, which is home to one of a few Chow Gardens. Chow Gardens were introduced in Sonic Adventure, and the Sonic Adventure 2 Chow Gardens work similarly but with new features. Chows are essentially virtual pets that you can raise. You can increase their stats by giving them drives and animals that you find in the game's regular stages. If you give animals to the Chow, they will even change the Chow's appearance. The Chow's stats will affect how well they do in events like races and karate. You can put your Chow in school, you can pet them, you can breed them. There's quite a lot of depth to the Chow Garden. It is completely optional unless you're going for 100%, so there's no need to come here if you don't want to. Admittedly, I'm not really a Chow guy. I would be all for the Chow Garden coming back in a future game, as it is a neat gameplay mode that a lot of people love, but it's not really how I personally would like to spend my time. With that out of the way, let's get back to the real hardcore gameplay. The island blows up, but luckily we all managed to escape. This leads us to our next stage, Pumpkin Hill. This is probably my favorite Knuckles stage. I love the vibe of this stage. It's this spooky mountain range with a ghost train, pumpkin-shaped mountains, and a haunted graveyard. The music is also cool. It has this 90s West Coast hip-hop vibe. All of the Knuckles levels have rap songs playing, which is a choice. A lot of the songs are pretty goofy, but the fact that they take themselves so seriously makes them so entertaining. Pumpkin Hill gives you a lot more space to fly around than the claustrophobic Wild Canyon, which is cool. Later levels will be a lot more difficult to navigate, but this stage manages to find a balance between being open, yet easy to find your way around. This is the stage where we get Knuckles' Drill Claws upgrade, which allows you to dig into the ground to find items and even emerald shards. I don't really care for this upgrade only because when emerald shards are buried, you have to be super precise where you dig in order to get the piece. After creeping around in Pumpkin Hill, Eggman decides to blow up the moon. Well, at least one side of it. Yet magically, in multiple games after this one, the moon looks completely fine. Congratulations, Eggman, you were aura farming for no reason. We get a glimpse at some of the human models in this game, and man do they not look good. That is one ugly little girl. Sonic and friends realize that Eggman must have used the Chaos Emeralds to power a cannon that strong. Also, apparently, Chaos Emeralds can attract each other? I completely forgot that this was a thing. Has this ever been referenced before or afterwards? In any case, Tails decides to use his Chaos Emerald to locate Eggman. Our next stage is another Tails level, Mission Street. In this level, we get the hover upgrade, allowing us to slowly glide down towards the ground after jumping, making platforming a lot more comfortable. I like how the stage is slowly being destroyed as you go through the level. You can even destroy the stage yourself by shooting these explosives, causing pillars to fall, and you can even use the pillars as platforms. Overall, this is probably my favorite Tails stage. The music here is really good. If I had to pin down a genre, I'd say Tails' stages use a lot of rock music, but Tails' songs make use of synths and other electronic elements, which fits given that Tails is a super genius that pilots a mech. The next stage is, Aquatic Mine. I guess we should get the good stuff out of the way first. The music. This is probably my favorite music track from the Knuckles stages. I like most of the Knuckles songs for how dumb and silly they are, but Aquatic Mine is legitimately a dope song. While Wild Canyon was an abrasive comeback song and Pumpkin Hill was a spooky, menacing track, Aquatic Mine is this groovy, chill vibe that's perfect for a late night drive or writing scripts for YouTube videos. Besides that though, I really don't like this level. Visually it's not very interesting, it's just a mine, and the fact that it's not very memorable and so much of it looks the same makes navigating this place harder too. It's a water level as well, which is already a bad sign, but it's also a water level where you have to change how high or low the water is to access different parts of the stage. Everyone's favorite level gimmick. Swimming is slow and you can't go too long without air or you'll drown. Drowning isn't the worst thing in the world though, because the thing about the emerald shards is, if you die, the positions of the emerald shards change. So if you can't find an emerald piece, you can maybe get a better location. Starting with this level, if I ever got to a point where I was spending more than a few minutes without any sign of the next piece on my radar, I just let myself lose a life and hopefully get a more easily accessible piece. It ended up working quite well. I almost always got a piece that was simpler to find the next go around. You get a checkpoint after each emerald shard you collect, so you don't have to worry about starting over unless you lose all of your lives and get a game over. While I am glad there's a workaround to make the game move quicker, it sucks that I have to use exploits like this to make these levels actually tolerable. Now, there is an upgrade you can get in this level called the Air Necklace, which lets Knuckles breathe underwater, making levels like this much easier. But unlike other upgrades, this upgrade is completely optional. Secret optional upgrades are cool, they encourage replayability and exploration, but an upgrade like this should have been a lot easier to find. Anyone playing this game for the first time is probably not gonna find it. I know I didn't. All in all, this is maybe my least favorite Knuckles stage, but there is another stage later that just might edge it out. After making his way out of the mine, Knuckles meets up with Amy and Tails. Tails decides to chase after the president to get to the bottom of Eggman's plans, which leads to Route 101, a kart racing minigame. It's a fairly short level where you're trying to reach checkpoints by a certain time and reach the president's limo. The controls aren't the best, but luckily it only lasts a few minutes. Eggman demands that the president surrender to him in 24 hours, or Eggman will use his laser to wipe out the country. Sonic and Tails jump into the limo, and Tails manages to find out where Eggman is. He's aboard a space colony called the Ark. The president's assistant tells him that he's getting an incoming transmission from their agent before the cutscene abruptly ends. Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy meet up at the entrance to Eggman's secret pyramid base. This leads into our next Tails level, Hidden Base. This is a level where I began to realize how slippery the controls for this game can be, especially with the shooter stages. Another problem I had was with the camera. You can control the camera manually, but sometimes it just has a mind of its own, and it just gets stuck in these really obnoxious or downright awful angles. This is also a desert level, which is a type of level that I'm typically not really a fan of, so I think it's best we move on. Next up, we have Sonic's level, Pyramid Cave. The gimmick of this level is we have these hourglass timers that open up doors for a short period of time. Not my favorite gimmick, but it's not the end of the world. This level does have some of the same hallway feel as Metal Harbor, but at the very least, it is cool to run along the walls. Another cool thing that this level has is a new upgrade, the Bounce Bracelet. This allows Sonic to do a little ground pound that bounces him up into the air, allowing you to attack enemies below you, and it lets you get some vertical height as well. It's not really a major thing, but this level also has enemies that look super similar to Gamma from Sonic Adventure 1. These guys are the E1000s, mass-produced versions of the E100 series from Sonic Adventure 1 that Gamma is a part of. It's nothing major, but it is a nice little callback to Sonic Adventure 1. We come face to face with the greatest challenge of our adventure yet, a locked door. So Knuckles will have to use his treasure hunting skills to find the 3 keys to open it. In our next level, Death Chamber, we'll have to look for keys instead of Master Emerald Shards. Your radar still works somehow, not really sure how Knuckles can sense keys he's never seen before, but I'm not complaining. Instead, I'm going to complain about this level because it's not very good. The timer gimmick from Pyramid Cave is back. It wasn't fun there, and it really isn't fun here. This level continues the trend that Aquatic Mind started of putting you in an area that isn't very big, but it's overly complicated. Death Chamber has various rooms, tunnels that take you to different areas, and locked doors that you need to use the hourglass timers to get through. After making it through the Chamber of Death, we encounter King Boom Boo, our first boss fight as Knuckles. He's a ghost that throws fireballs at you. You want to get behind him while he does his flamethrower and attack his henchman, who for some reason is carrying King Boom Boo's only weakness, an hourglass that opens up a trap door, revealing sunlight. King Boom Boo will turn into a shadow after getting hit with sunlight, so you have to dig into his shadow to get him out of the ground or the wall, and then you can attack him easily by gliding into him as he runs away. Eggman pulls up and summons his egg golem to attack us, leading to our next boss fight as Sonic. This fight is another pretty simple one. Avoid the hands and climb up the golem via the platforms on its back to attack its head. There is quicksand at the bottom of the room if you fall, but if you keep mashing the jump button, you'll get out of it. With the egg golem defeated, we make our way to this conveniently placed rocket that takes us into outer space. The rocket hits an asteroid which causes the Master Emerald Shards to fall out. This leads to another cutscene with really awkward voice acting.
Don't touch that lever!
We finally make it aboard the research station, the Space Colony Ark, and Tails reveals that a terrible accident happened here 50 years ago. Tails, being the genius that he is, created a fake Chaos Emerald that has the same wavelengths and properties as a real one. By placing the fake Chaos Emerald in the machine that's powering Eggman's cannon, we can cause the cannon to blow up. This takes us to our last Tails stage, Eternal Engine. Here we get the Vulcan cannon power-up, allowing you to break through metal boxes. This level introduces a new gimmick, airlocks. There are airlocks with bombs on them, so if you accidentally shoot the bombs, the airlocks will open. If you get too close to them, you'll get sucked out and die. It's a neat little way to get you to think carefully about where you're shooting, but I think a gimmick like this was introduced a little too late. In all of the shooter stages before this, you can just spam the fire button without having to care where you're shooting. After getting through Eternal Engine, Tails contacts Sonic, but before they can place the fake emerald, Eggman taps into their broadcast, and it seems like Amy is in trouble. Meanwhile, Knuckles is looking for the Master Emerald Shards in his last stage, Meteor Herd. Instead of a hip-hop song, Meteor Herd has this electronic dance track. That's about the only good thing about this level. This level is awful. It's a really big stage, especially vertically, with layers upon layers of areas to explore. Trying to find 3 little emerald pieces in this massive stage is so time consuming. In any case, with that level done, we get to our last Knuckles segment, a boss fight with Rouge. There's this floor in the middle that opens up, causing you to float, but otherwise it's a pretty straightforward boss fight. Just punch Rouge or hit her with your dive attack and she'll go down. We then get a cutscene where Rouge slips and falls off of a beam, then Knuckles saves her, and the game tries to act like there's some romantic tension here. They've canonically only met once before this, which was at the beginning of the game, so this Knuckles x Rouge ship kinda comes out of nowhere. I mean, I guess in the rap song that plays in Wild Canyon, Knuckles does call Rouge sexy and smooth. So at the very least, he does find her attractive, and Knuckles does save Rouge's life, so maybe that awakens some feelings within Rouge towards Knuckles as well, but I don't know, it's a little underdeveloped. But with all of that out of the way, we're officially done with Knuckles and the hero story. Now we move back to Sonic with his penultimate stage, Crazy Gadget. The gimmick of this stage is the direction of gravity changes throughout the level. It can be disorienting and the changes in gravity can make controlling Sonic awkward, but it's not a bad level. At the very least, it's interesting. It's kinda neat how we get inverted rail grinding, where we're hanging onto the rail from below. In this level, we get the Flame Ring, allowing Sonic to destroy metal boxes. Sonic finally makes it to where Eggman and the others are. Eggman is holding Amy hostage, and Tails gives Sonic the signal to give Eggman the fake emerald. Eggman knew about the fake emerald and he actually set his own trap, locking Sonic in the capsule and shooting Sonic down into space, after which the capsule explodes. With Sonic out of the picture, it's time for Tails to step up and beat Eggman. We get another boss fight against the Good Doctor, and it's a bit more challenging than the first time because now he's got some new special moves, like homing missiles and a big laser that's kind of a jump scare the first time you see it. After beating Eggman, we see that Sonic is alive. He managed to teleport out of the capsule before it exploded using Chaos Control. This is probably one of the most controversial parts of the story. Sonic somehow manages to do Chaos Control on his first try with a fake emerald that Tails says is less powerful than a real one. I really don't have much to say about this topic. Is it kinda dumb? Yeah, kinda, but I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. Now that Sonic is back in the picture, he heads to the cannon to stop it from firing. This is where we start the last Sonic stage and the last stage of the hero story, Final Rush. I want to love this stage. It's open-ended, there's so much ability to express yourself with all the different routes you can take, and there's some routes you can invent yourself. The problem is, the rail grinding is so janky. Other stages had rail grinding, but there wasn't a ton of it and it was typically pretty low stakes. Here though, one small mistake can lead you straight to your death. My problem is that so many times I died because instead of switching rails, I flung myself off of the rails. I have heard that this issue is likely because the GameCube release of Adventure 2 has messed up controls due to a joystick issue, and that is the version that the HD release is based on. But even so, I don't know why they just didn't make rail switching an automatic thing when you press the buttons. All in all, in my experience, the collision detection on the rails in general was off in this level. There were so many times when I thought I should have snapped the rails, but I didn't, causing me to die. And there were other times when I thought I should have missed the rail, but then I got snapped to it. This level was the eye-opener to make me really see the amount of jank this game has. Now, jank with clipping and occasional visual bugs is fine, but when it affects gameplay, that's another story. One of the main issues that causes the janky gameplay in my experience with Sonic Adventure 2 is that all of the actions in this game are mapped to one of two buttons, A or B. Jumping, the homing attack, and rail switching are all done with the A button. The B button is absolutely stuffed with actions. Somersaulting, spin dashing, bouncing, picking up items, pressing switches, and crouching on rails to build speed are all done with the B button. This is so unnecessary. Even if you don't include the start button, the Dreamcast controller has 4 face buttons, and the GameCube controller not including the start button has 4 face buttons as well. 4 face buttons have been the standard since the Super Nintendo. Heck, the Sega Genesis even had 3 face buttons. So why is everything in Sonic Adventure 2 mapped to just 2 buttons? Because of the number of actions put onto these buttons, half the time I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do when I press the A button, and especially the B button. Sometimes I want to do the lightspeed dash and the somersault comes out, and sometimes I want a homing attack but I just dash away and completely miss the enemy, or worse, fall off the stage and die. I think the developers wanted to keep the game simple by only using 2 buttons, but it ended up making the game far more complicated. Phew, I just had to get all that off my chest. Anyways, after we finish Final Rush, we get one final encounter with Shadow. I've been playing Adventure 2 for years, and I still don't know what you're supposed to do to win this boss fight. I just spam homing attacks and other moves until I win. As the Ark's cannon is getting ready to fire, it starts blowing up after Sonic uses the fake emerald to stop it. Things aren't entirely over though, as while Amy and Tails are distracted, we see Eggman's hand reach for Tails' Chaos Emerald. But with the cannon stopped, Sonic gives us a thumbs up, thus ending the hero's story. After the credits roll, something interesting happens though.
Eggman steals the research from a military base located on an island to the south.
The game gives us a quick little teaser for the Dark Side story. I played the Hero Side story first, but if you play the Dark Side story first, then you get a teaser for the Hero Side story instead. It seems a little weird having a trailer for something that's already in the game, but I think it works as a nice way to get you hyped to play the next part of the game. Typically when I get to the credits in a game, that's my sign to put the game down for a while and do something else. But this little teaser makes you want to dive back in and experience what the other story has to offer right away. So, grab a snack, use the restroom, finish that homework I know you were planning on doing in the morning before class starts, and when you're done, we'll be right back.
Sonic Adventure 2, The Dark Side Story. Long live the Eggman Empire.
You ready? Alrighty, let's jump into the Dark Side story. We start off with Eggman breaking into Gun's military base to learn more about his grandfather's secret weapon. This takes us to the first level of the story, Iron Gate, where we play as Eggman. Eggman is the Dark Story counterpart to Tails. The Dark Story counterparts are basically reskins of the hero characters, so there aren't a ton of differences outside of their models and animations. Fittingly, Iron Gate is similar to the first Tails level, Prison Lane. Iron Gate is a pretty unassuming level, but I guess it is somewhat entertaining to just destroy everything in your path. After going deeper inside of the base, Eggman enters a password and uses a Chaos Emerald to open up a capsule containing the military secret weapon, Shadow, who he somehow mistakes for Sonic. Shadow can apparently fly with his air shoes. Why doesn't he do this more often? I have no idea. But here we get our first chance to play as Shadow in a boss fight against Hotshot, who is basically just a reskin of Bigfoot, the first boss of the Hero story. I like how both the Hero and Dark stories follow their first levels with an encounter with Shadow. Shadow tells Eggman to get more Chaos Emeralds and meet him on the Space Colony Arc. In his search for the Chaos Emeralds, Eggman ends up finding the Master Emerald, which Knuckles and Rouge are currently fighting for. This is the first time we get to see the Dark Side alternative to a Hero story cutscene. It's basically the same as the one we got on the Hero side, but instead of playing Knuckles' theme song, Unknown From Me version 2, we hear Rouge's theme, Fly in the Freedom. Speaking of songs, this song is way too loud in this cutscene.
Well, I guess I can use it for something. I'll just take it with me.
You can barely hear the dialogue at times. It's especially annoying because the song has lyrics, which is typically not a good idea when you're doing a scene with dialogue. You normally use an instrumental instead of a vocal track. This takes us to our first Rouge level, Dry Lagoon. Rouge is the dark side story counterpart to Knuckles. One of the first things you probably notice when playing as Rouge is that her chest has jiggle physics. Man, someone on the dev team was really down bad. This game first came out on a console with less processing power than a modern refrigerator, but you better believe they were gonna use some of that power for some bouncy boobs. At any rate, Dry Lagoon is a pretty simple first stage. It takes place in this little oasis in the desert. You can use this turtle to move to a different part of the stage. Like Wild Canyon, it probably won't give you much trouble, just look around for the Master Emerald shards. We move right into the next Eggman stage, Sand Ocean. This is a desert level at night, which is a way to make a usually uninteresting level theme somewhat more visually stimulating. Besides that though, I don't really have much to say about this level. There's a lot of bottomless pits of course, but the platforming is pretty simple. Eggman finally makes it inside of his base, where he proceeds to do what we all do after a long day of work, doom scroll. He sees a news report blaming Sonic for Shadow robbing a bank. We get a brief flashback of Shadow's past where we see a girl named Maria, whom Shadow plans to get revenge for. What does he want revenge for? We aren't sure. But we do remember hearing Maria's name earlier when Eggman used it as a password to get into Shadow's containment pod. Shadow has got the fuzz on his tail, so we get to start his first level, Radical Highway. Shadow is, of course, the Dark Story counterpart to Sonic. Shadow is way cooler because instead of running, he skates using his special hover shoes. One of the things that I think was lost in later Sonic games was Shadow's sick skating animation. In later games, they make Shadow skate at a pretty consistent rate no matter how fast he's going, but in Adventure 2, when Shadow moves faster, he skates faster too by furiously moving his legs, which just looks so cool. This stage feels like a hallway at times, but there are some alternate paths. I love the city at night, and the music is super rad. Shadow's stage music is a blend of metal and industrial, which fits him perfectly. While not as iconic as Sonic's first stage, I do like Radical Highway. We get to see Shadow in Sonic's first encounter again, and we move into Rouge's second stage, Egg Quarters. Rouge is talking to someone at the start of the stage, and it seems like her motives aren't just collecting jewels. Like Death Chamber, in this level we'll be collecting keys instead of emerald shards. And like Death Chamber, this level is annoying, but not as bad as Death Chamber. The gimmick of this level is that Eggman's security robot is roaming around, and if you get spotted, things won't go so well for you. In this stage, we get an upgrade for Rouge, the Pick Nails, which are Rouge's version of Knuckles' drill claws, allowing her to dig into the ground. After making it deeper inside of Eggman's secret base, Rouge takes Eggman's teleporter to the Ark, as it's her mission to find out what he's planning. Speaking of Eggman, our next level is another Eggman level, Lost Colony, where we're trying to make it to the Ark's control room. This is the level where Eggman gets his hover upgrade, the jet engine. The gimmick is that the stage is dark, which does add a bit to the level by making everything feel a bit more spooky and ominous, which fits as this space colony has been dormant for 50 years. Eggman makes it to the Ark's control room where he reunites with Shadow, and Shadow tells him more about the Ark that Eggman's grandfather, Gerald Robotnik, worked aboard. The Ark has a powerful weapon called the Eclipse Cannon, which grows insanely strong if it has the power of all 7 Chaos Emeralds. Rouge has been eavesdropping, and she literally drops in, proposing a partnership between the 3 of them. Eggman accepts, thus forming the original Team Dark. Interesting how it takes this long for all 3 to meet and officially form their team. Team Dark is a new team of convenience, unlike the members of Team Hero who all know each other already. After Team Dark finally comes together, we get the infamous scene where Amy somehow mistakes Shadow for Sonic, which is kinda insane given how much of a Sonic fangirl she is. While it doesn't make a ton of sense, I could maybe believe that people who aren't familiar with Sonic could mistake Shadow for Sonic, but characters like Eggman and Amy are very familiar with Sonic. So both of them making this mistake is really dumb. It's likely that the story for Sonic Adventure 2 was written before Shadow's design was finalized, because if you look at one of Shadow's beta designs, he actually does look a bit more like Sonic. This design, called Terios the Hedgehog, would serve as an alternate costume for Shadow in the Shadow Generations game. As we saw from the hero story, Tails comes in to rescue Amy. We get a boss fight against Tails, and just like in the hero story, it's pretty easy. Our next stage is another Rouge level, Security Hall. This level has another infamous scene where Eggman tells Rouge that she has 15 minutes to find the Chaos Emeralds before the island explodes, and then Rouge decides to give herself a 5-minute time limit for no reason when Eggman says they have 15. It ends up working out for reasons we'll get to later, but it still is annoying because you still die and have to restart if you don't find the emeralds within Rouge's self-imposed 5-minute restriction. Thankfully, the level itself is kinda cool. You're inside of Gun's secret stash, there's money flying everywhere, and there's a strict time limit. So the whole level has a really sweet bank heist vibe. It helps that the music fits perfectly. The genre of music for Rouge's stages is jazz, and man, the song for this stage nails that sneaky spy feeling. The safes in the vault are locked, so you have to press a switch to open them up if an emerald is inside of one of them. After collecting the emeralds, we're approached by Flying Dog, which is basically just an always flying version of Bigfoot and Hotshot. It is cool that you get to face the boss as a treasure hunter character instead of a speed character like before. Unfortunately, Rouge ends up locked inside of Gun's vault, so she calls Shadow for help since the island is going to explode. For some reason, Rouge reminds Shadow of Maria. I'm not really sure why, but it causes Shadow to bolt off to go save her. This leads into the next Shadow stage, White Jungle. This level is Green Forest, but it's raining, and like Green Forest, it's a fun level. This level is where Shadow gets his upgrade to unlock the Lightspeed Dash. This level has a 10-minute time limit, and this is what I was talking about before when I said it worked out, since the island was supposed to blow up in 15 minutes, Rouge's level is 5 minutes, and Shadow's level is 10 minutes, 10 plus 5 equals 15, boom, public school education at its finest, yes. Except, this doesn't make total sense because Rouge has a boss fight with Flying Dog after her level, and Shadow also has a boss fight with Sonic after his level. So theoretically, you could go over the 15-minute time limit and still make it out, but I digress. I wish they switched things up and gave Shadow the 5-minute time limit and Rouge the 10-minute time limit, since speed stages typically take less time than treasure hunting stages. After finishing White Jungle, we get the boss fight with Sonic, which works basically the same way when the situation was reversed in the hero story. Shadow makes it to Rouge in time and uses Chaos Control to teleport both of them out of there before the island explodes. We get a flashback to Shadow on board the Space Colony Ark. Shadow has an existential crisis while talking to Maria, wondering about why he exists and what his purpose is, before his melancholic flashback is interrupted by Rouge, and then their conversation gets interrupted by Eggman. Man, everyone is really rude today. Eggman does his podcast where he says he's gonna blow up the world, and Rouge shows Eggman the newspaper. Man, ain't that a time capsule. The paper says that Tails has the last Chaos Emerald as he was given the emerald for saving Station Square during his story in Sonic Adventure 1, which is a really cool callback. After everyone leaves, we learn that Rouge has been sent on a mission to not only investigate Eggman, but Shadow as well. Next up, we have another kart racing minigame, Route 280. It functions the same as Tails' version from the hero story, Route 101. Rouge chases after Tails to get his Chaos Emerald, and at the same time, Shadow is going after him by taking the path on his next level, Skyrail. I love Skyrail. There are plenty of different alternate paths and skips you can do, making it really fun to play and replay. It even uses some of the Pumpkin Hill assets, and you know how much I love Pumpkin Hill. It even puts its own spin on it by making the stage set in the daytime, while Knuckles' stage has the glow of an evening sunset. Or maybe it's sunrise, I can't tell. Anyways, Skyrail is awesome. While not as awesome, something that is pretty cool is the next boss fight against the Egg Golem. I know what you're thinking, wait, didn't the Egg Golem fight Sonic in the hero story? Well, apparently when Sonic beat the Egg Golem, it caused the Egg Golem to go haywire and then attack Eggman. What I like about this boss fight is we get to fight a boss of a speed type character as a shooter character. Like with Flying Dog, I think it's interesting to see a boss from a different perspective now that you're playing as a different character type. It also means you'll have to approach this boss in a different way. While Sonic had to climb up the golem and hit its head to beat it, Eggman can just fill it with bullet holes. Also, while Sonic could jump out of quicksand, if Eggman lands in quicksand, he's toast. We go back to Rouge's perspective with her getting into the Space Colony Ark's computer and finding out more information about Shadow. She then decides to look for more pieces of the Master Emerald, which leads to the worst stage in the Dark story and the entire game, Mad Space. You get the iron boots in this level, allowing Rouge to break metal boxes. Mad Space is Rouge's last level in the game, and like Meteor Herd, we have to look all over space to find emerald shards. However, the gimmick this time is gravity. These planets work like the planets in Super Mario Galaxy, where you can traverse all around the planet thanks to the gravity that pulls you towards the center of the planet. This alternate gravity makes the controls wonky. Half the time I'm fighting with the controls just to get Rouge to move. It doesn't help that the camera sucks, and to make things even worse, this level is huge. Luckily, it only took me about 11.5 minutes this time around, but it can easily take you a half hour to beat the level. If the developers weren't sadistic enough, the hints in this level are written in reverse. It's like this level was designed to piss you off. Once the suffering is over, we get to a boss fight with Knuckles, which again is basically the same thing as the Hero Story fight but reversed. While this is going on, Eggman checks his scanners and realizes that Tails has a fake emerald, and Eggman goes to confront the heroes. This is our last Eggman stage, Cosmic Wall. While Mad Space was the worst Rouge level, Cosmic Wall is the best Eggman level. This level also has a gravity gimmick, but this time it's low gravity. Jumping is super floaty here, and by hovering you can actually fly upwards, giving you way more liberty in how you can move. Cosmic Wall does run a bit long, but it's super kinetic and you're always moving. There's plenty of enemies to destroy, like these annoying artificial versions of Chaos from Sonic Adventure 1. Adventure 1 and Adventure 2's stories are pretty self-contained, but I do like how the game tried to blend the two together to some degree. Apparently Gerald was doing some research on Chaos, leading to the creation of these fake copies. Eggman pulls out a gun on Amy, leading to the scene where Sonic is trapped and shot into space. We get the Tails boss fight, which again is just like the Hero Story fight where you battle Eggman instead. Thinking about it now, I kinda wish they gave us different boss fights instead of just doing the same boss fights in the Hero Story but from the Dark Story characters' perspectives. The characters are so similar to their alternate story counterparts that the fights feel the same. Shadow finally figures out that Rouge the Bat is a government spy, meaning she's the agent that the president's assistant was talking about in the Hero Story. Shadow doesn't really have time to care since he decides to dip and chase after Sonic, who's trying to stop the Eclipse Cannon. This leads to our final Shadow stage and the last stage of the Dark Story, Final Chase. Final Chase is aesthetically similar to Final Rush, but gameplay-wise, instead of using rail grinding as its main gimmick, Final Chase uses these spinning gravity cylinders. This level is fun to traverse, there's alternate paths to go through, and overall I think it's a solid final level. I prefer this over Final Rush. With Final Chase out of the way, we catch up to Sonic and have our final battle. There's something surreal about fighting Sonic as a boss in a Sonic game. As usual, this is basically the same thing as the hero side version of the fight. Eggman places the 7th Chaos Emerald inside of the Eclipse Cannon console, laughing maniacally until a strange warning message shows up on the screen. But then the story abruptly ends and the credits roll. Well, that was weird. It's almost like there's more to this story. And that's because there is more. After completing both the Hero and Dark stories, you get a brief teaser for the last story, a new option on the story select screen.
The ultimate life form. Chaos control.
This preview is giving major Kingdom Hearts vibes with all of the ominous text flying around. Although to be fair, Sonic Adventure 2 does predate Kingdom Hearts 1, so I guess it's more like Kingdom Hearts is giving Sonic Adventure 2 vibes. This teaser is mostly just all of the characters saying random things, but I think the whole thing is ominous yet tranquil at the same time, which I find really cool. Before we get into the last story, I do want to talk a bit about the story structure of Sonic Adventure 2. I think allowing you to pick which story you want to do first is a pretty cool feature. I think playing the Hero Story first and then playing the Dark Story allows you to get more out of the game. I say this because in the Hero Story, things just kinda happen. Sonic is arrested, Shadow comes out of nowhere, and Prison Island blowing up is something that Sonic only learns about by overhearing Eggman. The whole story is really crazy and you're never really sure exactly what's going on. This creates a cool mystery throughout the entire game. The Dark Story is where you'll learn most of the backstory surrounding the game, context on events in the plot, and why things are happening. The Hero Story is the question, and the Dark Story is the answer. Now that we have all of the puzzle pieces, it's time to put everything together. But anyhow, you all know the drill. Take a minute to get yourself ready for the last episode.
Sonic Adventure 2, last episode. Wishes are eternal.
You ready? Alrighty, let's jump into the last story. The last story starts immediately from where the Dark Story ended. The cannon isn't firing even though it has all 7 Chaos Emeralds in its console, and Eggman is getting a warning message on his machine. We learn that Eggman's grandfather, Jared Robotnik, programmed the Ark to go on a crash course towards Earth when all 7 of the Chaos Emeralds were placed into it. Eggman's grandfather went mad after his granddaughter Maria was killed in a gun raid on the Ark after Gunn discovered how powerful Shadow was. This whole time, Shadow tricked Eggman into gathering the emeralds to get revenge for Maria's death. The dire situation causes Eggman and Rouge to team up with Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails in order to stop the Ark. The plan is to use the Master Emerald to disable the Chaos Emeralds, thus stopping the Space Colony Ark. This leads us to the last stage in the game, Cannon's Core. This stage is one long gauntlet where you play as all of the playable characters minus Shadow. First Tails, then Eggman, then Rouge, then Knuckles, then Sonic. After one segment ends, you immediately go into the next one. The main gimmick of these levels is that there are these switches that can stop time for a bit, allowing you to freeze platforms in place, get past harmful lasers, and stop enemies in their tracks. The Knuckles and Rouge segments have underwater sections which can be annoying, especially the Knuckles one since you have to worry about maintaining air, avoiding enemies, and getting through obstacles in the short window you have while time is stopped. Besides the Knuckles segment though, it's not a particularly difficult final level. Overall, I think it's alright. The underwater stuff is annoying, but I think stopping time is a cool mechanic. While everyone else is trying to stop the Ark, Amy is just kinda wandering around until she sees Shadow. Amy tries to convince Shadow to give humanity another chance, because like Gerald, Shadow became disillusioned with humankind. Amy gets Shadow to remember Maria and how she loved the people of Earth. Amy reminding Shadow of Maria makes way more sense than when it happened earlier with Rouge, because Amy actually does reiterate a lot of the same ideas that Maria spoke about. Shadow sheds a tear and decides to join the good guys in stopping the Ark. It's a sweet scene, but my only issue is the music. It starts off with this beautiful piano piece while Amy is speaking with Shadow, and then midway through,
Shadow, I beg you, please do it for them. Give them a chance.
Shadow, I beg of you, please, do it for me.
they just switch to this loud industrial metal song. There's no fade out, no transition, it just pulls up. It's a tad jarring. Granted, the song does chill out after a few seconds, but I feel like there had to be some better way to handle the music here. Sonic and Knuckles make it to the core of the Ark where the Chaos Emeralds are being guarded by the prototype version of the Ultimate Lifeform, the Bio Lizard. Before Sonic and Knuckles can fight it, Shadow shows up to tango with his beta version, giving us another boss fight. The song for this boss fight, called Supporting Me, is fantastic. It's so sinister and mysterious. You run around this ring-shaped stage to avoid the Bio Lizard slamming into you. It'll shoot these electric energy spheres at you that have these humongous hitboxes. After a while, it'll get tired, allowing you to grind up its life support system tubes and hit its weak spot. While I enjoy the music and I like the fight from a narrative perspective, I find this boss fight really annoying. Like I mentioned, the energy spheres are huge. They're also semi-transparent, which can make it hard to discern where you have to go to avoid them. There's a waterway cutting through the middle of the stage, and if you fall in, you can very quickly die. When the Bio Lizard's health is at about half, it'll start doing this new move where it summons these floating pink orbs all around it, and some of those orbs will home in on you. You'll have to homing attack the orbs to get enough height to reach the Bio Lizard's weak spot. Having all these different homing attack targets without a reticle means which orb the game decides to make you go after is a guessing game, and sometimes it won't work at all. Also, somehow I died here when I was trying to homing attack the weak spot? Ugh. When you get the Bio Lizard's health near the end, it'll make you levitate and you'll have to float past all of the orbs to hit the weak spot for one last blow. Knuckles uses the Master Emerald to disable the Chaos Emeralds, but the Bio Lizard uses Chaos Control to warp itself outside so it can pilot the Ark itself and continue its crash course to Earth. Sonic and Shadow use the Chaos Emerald to go into their super forms, and they fly out into outer space for one final battle against the Bio Lizard. This final boss fight has you fly around while avoiding the Bio Lizard's orbs and lasers so you can slam into its weak spot. You alternate between controlling Sonic and Shadow, both attacking the weak spots. During the fight, Sonic mentions how Shadow's getting weaker. As time goes on, you slowly lose ring energy, so make sure you take the Bio Lizard down before you lose power and die. While fighting the boss, the game's main theme, Live and Learn, plays, which is, of course, awesome. After taking enough hits, the Bio Lizard finally goes down. Sonic and Shadow use a combined Chaos Control to warp the Ark out of Earth's orbit, saving the planet. Unfortunately, Shadow runs out of energy and falls down to Earth, dying as a hero. At least until he shows up in the next game. Sonic gives Rouge one of the rings that Shadow wore on his wrists as a memento. Eggman talks about how much he looked up to his grandfather, and Tails reminds him how they all worked together to save the Earth. Knuckles asks Rouge what she's gonna do now, and she says that she's gonna give up being a treasure hunter, at least until the next game. Sonic bids one final farewell to his fallen comrade Shadow, and the game ends. A new day brings new adventure, but for now, rest easy, heroes. So yeah, that's Sonic Adventure 2. I've already given my thoughts on all of the stages and the gameplay as a whole throughout this video, but I guess I should wrap everything up in a nice bow. So here are my final thoughts. Do I think Sonic Adventure 2 is the greatest Sonic game ever? No, I personally don't. The game feels a bit rushed. The janky controls and camera, poor audio mixing, questionable script, plot contrivances, and occasionally insufferable level design keeps this from being my favorite Sonic game. Although, I do think this game has a lot of really cool stuff to offer. The soundtrack is amazing, easily a top 5 Sonic soundtrack. I love how many different musical genres are incorporated into the soundtrack. Ska, metal, hip-hop, drum and bass, jazz, there's just so much variety here. And I appreciate how the characters were each given a style of music that fits them perfectly. Some of my favorites are For True Story from the Hero and Dark Story final bosses, Dive into the Mellow for Aquatic Mine, Lovely Gate 3 for Egg Quarters, Supporting Me for the Biolizard fight, and Fly in the Freedom, Rouge's theme song. Speaking of Rouge, I think her and Shadow were great new additions to the Sonic cast. Rouge is a fun femme fatale character who's all about her money, and Shadow is a great new rival for Sonic. Here he's got that perfect mix of being edgy but still playful and with a good heart to boot. While not a new character, it's also really cool that we get to play as Eggman in this game. That's not something that happens often outside of stuff like racing games and party games. I haven't spoken a ton about the game's visuals, but to briefly talk about them, I think this game does have some weird animations that feel a bit off and uncanny, and the models haven't aged the best, but there are some things that I do really enjoy aesthetically. I think in terms of cinematography, this game is a big leap from Adventure 1. There are some legitimately cool cutscenes here. I also love Yuji Uekawa's 2D artwork for this game, so I'm glad we get to see some of it in the menus and in the character recaps when you return to the story mode after leaving. This game does have a multiplayer mode, but I'm not going to cover that here, just like I didn't really get too deep into the Child Guard and stuff. Just not really my thing, as I'm more interested in the single player campaign. Since I'm not doing the Child Garden stuff, that also means I can't get 100%, which also involves doing the stage missions in the game. The missions in this game have you replay old levels with some new goals, like collecting 100 rings or completing a harder version of the level. I'm not really a 100% guy, so this stuff never interested me much, but if you want more out of this game, then there is extra stuff for you to do. All in all, while there were quite a few annoyances, I did enjoy a lot of things in this game, and I can see why this game is highly regarded by fans, even if it isn't my personal favorite game in the series. If you made it this far into the video, I greatly appreciate you watching, and if you don't mind, leave a like, it really does help the video out. If you're interested in watching more videos like this, here's a video I did on a less popular Sonic game, Sonic Lost World. I also have a whole playlist of Sonic videos for you to check out if you're looking for something to marathon, or to just have something to listen to as background noise. That's all I've got to talk about for today though, so thanks for watching y'all, and have a great rest of your day.